Most High. So today, it's going to be a lesson. I would rather think it's an important lesson. The Bible says the devil, which is him and his fallen angels, are in the earth. Many of you know about Australia. Many of you are proven that they are way deep under the worst ones, the pyramid. Question is, we know where a lot of places where the fallen angels are, besides the ones that live in the earth who come out in these chariots of war. The Most High calls them machines of war, and the rebels live in those machines. They are, in fact, devils. But where is the head devil? Where is he at? Where did the Most High put him? I know some of you may have studied the pre-Anamites, and some of y'all know who and what the pre-Anamites were, aka coneheads, which is why they made a movie about it. How evil are they? So I asked you to watch this video to give you more input. And again, how can you know how to defeat your enemy, or understand why it is important to cling to the Most High only so that he can defeat your enemy for you, if you don't know what's going on with your enemy?
In popular culture, we've all seen countless images of the Satan, and usually we see him ruling the fires of hell from the underworld. We see pitchforks and horns. But what does the Bible actually say about the Satan? What does it say about his location and his tactics? What does it say about his crew, the fallen angels and the demonic entities? Well, it's time to explore in detail what the Bible says about all of this and more. Stay tuned. Whenever one decides to grow in their knowledge of God, one of the first things we have to do is read the Bible for ourselves. You see, we all have been bombarded with inaccurate and fanciful ideas when it comes to spiritual concepts. Accurate and fanciful ideas when it comes to spiritual concepts. For instance, many of us grew up with this idea that God is some giant with a long beard who sits on a cloud somewhere. And such ideas make it harder to believe in God. But when you actually read the Bible for yourself, we see that it says God is spirit. We see that it says God is spirit. We see that it says God is spirit, which is actually a very practical concept. Many of us grew up with the idea that Satan is a red-horned figure who lives underground. But when you read the Bible, we are shown what and where Satan really is. And when you get deep into it, again, you will find a very practical concept. Now, Many of you have seen our previous episode, which tells the story of this gangster who goes to hell. And in that presentation, it shows this image of Satan with horns, and it seems as if he is the ruler of hell. And so here I just want to make the point that the imagery there is not to be taken literally as how Satan actually works, because this portion of that episode is symbolic to show how Satan is largely responsible for those who end up in hell. So in that episode, the images are mostly figurative and often symbolic. However, in our most recent episode, where we expose one of Satan's lies, the imagery there can be taken as more likely how Satan works and where he is. So, is Satan ruling hell from under the ground? Well, let's just jump right into what the Bible says. So here, Ephesians 6:12, Paul is writing to the Ephesian church, and look what he says about Satan and the forces of darkness. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. So here Paul, when he's writing to believers, he says we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, meaning humans. He's saying that our main enemy, Satan, is where? In the heavenly places. We wrestle against the authorities, the cosmic powers who rule the kingdom of darkness, the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly places. Now, when we look at the Greek word for heavenly places here, let's go to tools. We end up finding the Greek word heavenly places, and that is the Greek word eperenios. And in the Greek, we see that eperenios is often used to translate the heavenly, in heaven, celestial, basically something that is existing in the heavens. And so let's go a little bit deeper than that by clicking here to see how heaven in the Bible is described. And the Greek word, of course, there shows that heaven in the New Testament refers to what? In the air, the heavens, really in the skies